Hello, and welcome to this presentation of Learning New Skills During a Global Pandemic, How to Develop Collaborative Training Opportunities with Your Colleagues. My name is Candace Pine, and I am the Visiting Manuscript Librarian at Miami University. And I also want to acknowledge my colleague, Rachel Makarowski, who is the Special Collections Librarian at Miami. Rachel has been my partner in this training endeavor, and she was a great help to me in creating this poster as well. I'll begin with a brief background of how this project came about. In the spring and summer of 2020, our staff was working from home due to the pandemic, and I found I had some extra time that I could devote to learning a new skill. I knew the department needed some extra assistance with cataloging our rare books, so I decided to pursue learning how to catalog so I could help. At first, I attempted to find some online training materials on my own, but I quickly became overwhelmed in figuring out where to start. That's when I knew I was going to need some help. My boss suggested I reach out to Rachel, our Special Collections Librarian. She is responsible for cataloging our rare books, so he knew she could point me in the right direction. I emailed her and asked if she could recommend some introductory cataloging resources for me, and not only did she have materials to share, but she offered to help teach me as well. I gratefully accepted, and soon we outlined a timeline and the goals for my training. Then Rachel identified and shared a number of relevant resources that would help impart the necessary foundational skills I would need to get started. Now I want to note some of those fantastic resources that Rachel shared with me that really improved my understanding of cataloging. First, OhioNet has a series of webinars called The Fundamentals of Cataloging. They break down the basics of original and copy cataloging in a way that makes it very easy to understand. Then there are the webinars that OCLC provides to help train users to utilize their connection client, which are also excellent. And finally, I looked over the Descriptive Cataloging of Rare Materials manual that focuses on books, which is a great resource as well. And during this time, when I was going through all of those online materials, Rachel was busy too. She found digitized books on the Hathitrust website that I could use to practice cataloging. She also found or created cataloging templates that I used to create practice records. Plus, she gathered various resources on the topics of the anatomy of the book and the history of the book, because she knew that type of information could come up in the catalog records that I might encounter. And she put all of those resources into a Google folder that she shared with me so we could both easily access the materials that we needed. Next, Rachel and I began to hold regular virtual training sessions via Zoom about once a week. I took the templates and other resources Rachel provided and created mock original catalog records. I also practiced things like writing title page transcriptions and signature statements as a way to get comfortable with some of the special elements and rules that pertain to cataloging rare books in particular. So how it worked for us was each week Rachel would assign certain work for me to do on my own, and then we would discuss what I worked on during our virtual meetings. We would go over the records I created, and she would answer any questions I had. And that turned out to be a great learning experience for the both of us. Sometimes our discussions would lead to questions that Rachel didn't necessarily have a good answer to, so she would have to do a little digging to discover more information, and then we both gained a better understanding of things. Our staff finally returned to working in the office in person in late August 2020, but Rachel and I continued to meet virtually. However, the good news was that we had access to our own collections again, and I was ready to begin working with them. So I was given access to our instances of Sierra and Connection, and Rachel selected books with increasing complexity from our uncatalogued collection for me to catalog. During our virtual training sessions, Rachel walked me through searching for records in Connection and then editing them as needed to accurately reflect the books that I was working with. Then she showed me how to export the records into Sierra so our online catalog would be updated with the records I had created. And as my training progressed, Rachel allowed me to have more of a choice in the materials I worked on. For example, in the photos you see here are some of the artist books that I particularly enjoyed working on. And this is how things stand as of this recording. Rachel and I continue to meet weekly via video chat to catalog materials together and discuss any questions that arise during the process. And I have to say that overall, this training process we have developed together has proved to be very effective at improving my cataloging skills and enabling me to practically employ them in the regular course of my work. And this brings me to some final words of advice. We hope that this training method can be useful to other librarians and archivists, etc., either in learning how to catalog or learning other skills. So these are the tips we have for employing this training method yourselves. First, identify the skill set to be learned as well as a potential collaborator. Then approach that collaborator to hopefully secure their assistance. And then you should discuss the goals and create a realistic timeline for the training. We also recommend you establish a way of sharing materials and information, such as how we used a shared Google folder. Then the trainer should gather and or create the materials and resources needed for training and share them with the trainee. Then you conduct your regular training sessions where open dialogue is encouraged and you work through any problems or challenges that arise together. We also recommend that you assess and reorganize the training as needed to continue to enable the trainee to gain the most relevant skills that they need. And finally, have the trainee transition to utilizing their new skills in the workplace with increasing independence. And with that, I will say thank you for your attention. I hope this information will be helpful to you. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me or my colleague, Rachel Makarowski. You will find both our email addresses at the bottom of the poster. Thanks again.